It's just past 7:30 p.m. across India. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my dear colleague in Washington, D.C., Nick Harper. Nick, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, D.C., 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we'll have plenty of reaction, including from the United Nations, where a vote is due to get underway on whether to admit Palestine as a full member. We'll have the details live with our correspondent there. But first, the details.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says it has sufficient armaments to stand alone in this fight with Hamas. Ukraine says it repulsed the Russian bid to cross border near Kharkiv. President Zelensky says Kiev ready for a Russian attack on Kharkiv region. Prosecutors are going to call their final witnesses on day 15 of the criminal hush money trial against former US President Donald Trump in New York. And the UK exits recession, recording the fastest growth in nearly 3 years. Prime Minister Sunak welcomes the data ahead of elections. Our first news from West Asia. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday said that he hopes to overcome disagreements with US President Joe Biden over the conflict in Gaza, while reiterating that he would continue to do everything needed to protect Israel.
I've known Joe Biden for many years, so 40 years and more. We often had our agreements, but we've had our disagreements. We've been able to overcome them. I hope we can overcome them now, but we will do what we have to do to protect our country, and that means protect our future.
In an interview given to a TV channel, Netanyahu said Israel has destroyed 20 of Hamas's 24 terrorist battalions, noting that the remaining 4 are in Rafah, and so Israeli forces have to enter the region. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu further said that Israel can stand alone if needed, adding that the country was prepared to fight with fingernails if necessary. Netanyahu's comments came after US President Joe Biden warned that the United States would pause weapon supplies if Israel moved into Rafah. The United States has already paused a shipment of weapons to the country.
We are determined and we are united in order to defeat our enemies and those who want to destroy us. If we need to stand alone, we will stand alone. I have said that if necessary, we will fight with our fingernails. But we have much more than fingernails, and with that same strength of spirit, with God's help, together we will win.
The United States, on its part, said that it believes a major military operation in Rafah would weaken Israel's position in hostage talks with Hamas. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that Washington continues to engage with Israel on amendments to a ceasefire proposal submitted by Hamas.
We actually think that a Rafah operation would weaken Israel's position, both in these talks and writ large. We've talked about this before, that a major military operation in Rafah would further weaken Israel's standing in the world, would further create distance from its partners in the region who actually share Israel's goal of seeing Hamas defeated and want to see Hamas replaced with a different governance structure in Gaza.
With Gaza land routes hard to access and not fully operational, Jordan has led a coalition of Western and Arab air forces that is focusing on airdrops in northern Gaza. Air Vice Marshal of Britain's Royal Air Force in Cyprus said that these airdrops through Jordan are an incredibly effective way to distribute aid in Gaza. He said Britain's Royal Air Force had made its 11th airdrop on Thursday close to Gaza's seashore, as it's considered to be the safest area. Britain is also helping speed up operations of a Cyprus-inspired maritime corridor where a pier will be placed off the Gaza coast and should be operational soon. All this as the Palestinians are reviving their bid to become a full UN member at New York today. My colleague Nick Harper joins us all from Washington, D.C., and he takes it forward from me here. Nick, a crucial vote today on a resolution that would not only grant new rights to Palestine, but also ask the UN Security Council to favourably reconsider its request to become a full UN member.
That's right, Tanvi. The United Nations General Assembly is likely to vote shortly on a draft resolution that would back Palestine's bid to become a full UN member. The vote by the 193-member General Assembly will act as a global survey of support for the Palestinians. An application to become a full UN member needs to be approved by the Security Council and the General Assembly. The Assembly will further urge the UN Security Council to favourably reconsider the Palestinians' request to become the 194th member of the United Nations. The draft resolution being put to a vote in the General Assembly will give Palestinians some additional rights and privileges, like a seat among the UN members in the Assembly Hall, but it will not grant them a vote in the body. Well, to break all of this down and to get more from the UN headquarters, we're joined by DD India's Jody Jacobs live in New York. Jody, let's start by what we're expecting to happen in the General Assembly over the next hour.
Well, Nick, it's rather complicated, but I think it's very easy to distill, and for somebody that's been at the UN for quite a long time, I'm going to try and break it down. It's all about a vote for certain privileges, I might say, at the UN General Assembly. It's not a vote for full membership at the UN as initially anticipated. However, the resolution does in fact state that it believes that the state of Palestine is qualified to be a member at the United Nations. This is contrary, of course, to the United States' view. It says that the Palestinian Authority does not currently meet the criteria under the UN Charter. Now, this resolution that will be voted on, it needs a 2/3 majority within the UN General Assembly, recommends that the Security Council, of course, reconsider this membership application, but it goes further. It now says that the state of Palestine can be seated amongst other member states in the General Assembly. It can speak at the General Assembly. It wasn't able to do so before unless the topic was about Palestine. It's able to now table proposals and amendments, but one thing, of course, that it can't do is to vote, and that is a right that is only afforded if you are a full member of the United Nations.
And Jody, the US has already indicated its intention to continue to block Palestine's full membership at the United Nations. Washington releasing a statement this morning ahead of the vote.
Correct, Nick, and Washington's envoy to the UN releasing that statement just a few hours before this crucial vote that's expected to take place within the UN General Assembly. It says that it remains the view of the US that unilateral measures at the United Nations will not advance the ultimate goal, it says, of a two-state solution. It also says that the United States will be voting no in the UN General Assembly, and it encourages other member states to do exactly the same. But it goes one step further, and it says that should the General Assembly adopt this resolution and refer the Palestinian membership application back to the Security Council, they will again use their veto in the Council. It is also very interesting to see how this all plays out in the next few hours, Nick, because Israel has already called on the US to withdraw its funding of the UN in accordance with American law should Palestine get increased privileges. Now, important to note that the US law does in fact prohibit it from funding any UN organization or organ that grants full membership to a country that is not internationally recognized. Nick?
Jody, thank you. That was Jody Jacobs joining us live in New York ahead of a busy morning there at the UN General Assembly. We're moving on to Europe now, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the head of the state guards on Thursday after two members were accused of plotting to assassinate him. Ukraine's State Security Service said it had caught two men, colonels in the State Guard service, accused of plotting the assassination of the president and other top officials. The security service said the men were recruited by Russia's Federal Security Service. Russia, though, is yet to comment on the incident.
Russia started a new wave of offensive actions at this direction. Ukraine met them with our troops, brigades and artillery. It is important to understand that they can increase and bring more forces at this direction. It is a fact. But our military and military commanders were aware of it and considered its force in order to meet the enemy with artillery fire.
Kiev has remained defiant after Russian forces broke through Ukraine's border in the Kharkiv region with armoured vehicles, opening a new front in the conflict. Ukrainian authorities have stepped up, sending reinforcements to tackle the breach and also evacuating civilians from the region amid intense Russian shelling, which has already claimed 2 lives. Earlier, a Russian oil refinery was set ablaze during a Ukrainian drone attack. Ukraine claims that it has destroyed all drones launched by Russia in an overnight attack. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president has said his country's troops have prepared for the latest Russian ground assault. However, he's also warning that Moscow could send more troops to Kharkiv. To get more on this,
Russia started a new wave of offensive actions at this direction. Ukraine met them with our troops, brigades and artillery. It is important to understand that they can increase and bring more forces at this direction. It is a fact. But our military and military commanders were aware of it and considered its force in order to meet the enemy with artillery fire.
Well, for more on this, Dasha Chonashova, India's DD India's correspondent in Moscow, sent us this report.
Well, yet to hear from the Russian Ministry of Defense regarding these latest developments. However, earlier in the day, the so-called underground movement was quoted by the Russian RIA Novosti news agency as saying that the Russian military have been carrying out attacks against the warehouses of the Western ammunition in Kharkiv itself, as well as in the Kharkiv region. We're also getting some reports about the intensification of attacks on this direction from the military reporters. But again, in the latest briefing by the Russian Ministry of Defense, there hasn't been any indication of that. They have said, however, that over the past week they have taken under the Russian control the two villages in the area. This is the village of Koterovka as well as Kislovka, and they also been talking about the advancements of the Russian armed forces on the Donetsk direction as well. Now, we understand that over the past week the Russian Ministry of Defense has carried out 27 group strikes using high-precision weapons, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles against the energy facilities of Ukraine, as well as the military-industrial complex of the Ukrainian armed forces. This is, again, to achieve what Russia calls demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, the stated goals of Russia's operation in Ukraine. They also say at the Ministry of Defense that over the past week they have repelled 64 counterattacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. In the meantime, we understand that there have been several attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces against the Russian territories, particularly Belgorod and Belgorod region. This is where only this morning we've heard about numerous attacks by the Ukrainian drones that have been repelled by the Russian armed forces. So all in all, we understand that the conflict is ongoing, but about the developments on the Kharkiv direction, we are yet to hear the confirmation from the MOD.
Britain's economy experienced its largest growth in 3 years in the first quarter of 2024. Figures just out show that the British economy grew 0.6% in the first quarter. pulling the country out of a recession. The rate reflects the fastest period of growth in 2 years, which the government has called encouraging. DD India's Juliet Chapman sent us this report from London.
Economic growth in the UK in the first 3 months of the year was better than expected, boosted by strong consumer spending. The services sector has been given a helping hand by slowing inflation, which is now outpaced by wage growth. Car manufacturing also saw a big uptick in output. The construction sector, on the other hand, saw a 0.9% contraction between January and March. But overall, the figures are a significant improvement on the previous 2 quarters, when the economy contracted overall, bringing the UK into a technical recession. Now that the recession is officially over, economists say the worst is behind the country. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt says the British economy is returning to full health, and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says the country has turned a corner.
After undoubtedly a difficult couple of years that the country has had, with COVID, Ukraine, and everything else in between, that actually now things are starting to feel better.
The government will use the figures published on Friday to send a political message that the Conservative Party can be trusted with the economy. It's unlikely, however, to make much of a dent in its polling figures, with the ruling party trailing the opposition by a large margin. Despite the positive economic news, when adjusted for inflation and population growth, GDP per capita is still 0.7% lower than a year ago. The opposition Labour Party says prices are still high and British people are worse off than when Rishi Sunak took office. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says this is no time for a victory lap, arguing that living standards are lower than they were at the beginning of this parliament. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
US News now, and day 15 of the criminal hush money trial against former President Donald Trump is currently underway. It's the end of a dramatic week which has seen 2 days of testimony from the adult film star Stormy Daniels. Over the next week, prosecutors will be calling their final witnesses in the first ever criminal trial of a former US president. A former White House aide is scheduled to be cross-examined this Friday. They testified about checks Trump signed in the Oval Office and a meeting he's scheduled with his former personal counsel and fixer Michael Cohen in the 2017 to 2021 presidency. Trump denies having an affair with the adult film star Daniels and has called the whole case politically motivated. Apple has issued an apology after an advertisement for its latest iPad Pro model sparked criticism. The ad, which showed an array of musical instruments and other creative tools being crushed, received strong reactions from audiences. The advertisement, titled Crush, has over 1 million views on Apple's YouTube channel and has been shared by CEO Tim Cook on the social media platform X. Well, Tanvi, the tech giant has admitted that it missed the mark on this one with the latest advertisement.
Clearly, Nick, people criticize this ad as being insensitive and an unwelcome departure from the company's historic positioning of its brand commitments to creativity and being human-friendly. They'll have to rework this ad for sure. Thank you, Nick. Nick Harper joining us all from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's take on corruption and governance ahead as campaigning for the 4th phase of election intensifies in India. And in a message of hope, a whale makes a stunning comeback off the coast of Argentina 100 years after vanishing.
सर 50,000 एडवांस।
पर इतना कैश तो हम नहीं लाए।
और आज बैंक भी बंद है।
इलाज है डिजिटल पेमेंट का आसान सा ढूंढ।
लेकिन
अरे घबराइए मत, सावधानी के साथ करेंगे तो कोई साइड इफेक्ट भी नहीं होगा। फोन लाइए मुझे, यहाँ फोन लगाइए। डिजिटल पेमेंट से लेन देन हो सकता है, आसान सुरक्षित और तेज। मैंने तो इन्हें डिजिटल पेमेंट सिखा दिया है। आपने? क्योंकि आरबीआई कहता है कि
डिजिटल पेमेंट अपनाओ,
औरों को भी सिखाओ।
Thank you for staying with us on DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. Now back to New Delhi. During an interview with a private news channel of India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed several issues and made significant statements regarding corruption and governance in India before 2014. In the interview, Prime Minister Narendra Modi asserted his commitment to take legal action for returning the allegedly looted money to the victims of Bihar's Land for Jobs scam.
बिहार का मामला है। जब लालू प्रसाद जी रेलवे मिनिस्टर थे तो उनका आरोप है कि जिन लोगों को नौकरी दी बदले में जमीन ले ली है और मामला सीबीआई में चल रहा है, मतलब कि प्रूफ्स आर अवेलेबल। तो मेरा आग्रह रहेगा, मैं वकीलों से सलाह ले रहा हूं कि जो बच्चे नौकरी पाने के लिए जमीन खोई है अपनी पैतृक संपत्ति है, वो अब मजबूरी में उन्होंने दे दी। मैं चाहूंगा कि जमीन उन बच्चों को वापस मिले।
India's apex court today granted interim bail to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal for 21 days till June the 1st. The national convener of the Aam Aadmi Party has been asked to surrender on June the 2nd, a day after polling for the 7-phased parliamentary elections will end. Kejriwal was arrested on March 21st by the Enforcement Directorate in the alleged Delhi liquor policy scam. And next we get you the latest buzz on the world's largest democratic elections underway in India. So as political bigwigs are battling it out, campaigning has intensified for the 4th phase of Lok Sabha elections scheduled for May the 13th. 96 Lok Sabha seats in 10 states will go to polls under the 4th phase of elections. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a rally in Mehboob-nagar in the South Indian state of Telangana. Earlier, while addressing a public meeting in Nandurbar in the western Indian state of Maharashtra, Prime Minister Modi launched a scathing attack on the Congress party. He cornered the grand old party on various issues, including that of the Ayodhya Ram Mandir.
ये राम के देश में राम मंदिर को देश विरोधी बता रहे हैं। ये तुष्टीकरण के लिए सरकारी इफ्तारी करने वाले लोग, ये आतंकवादियों की कब्रों को संवारने वाले लोग, ये हम सबके प्रभु राम और जिनका राम मंदिर जहां हम जाते हैं उस राम मंदिर जाने को देश विरोधी बता रहे हैं।
Home Minister and senior BJP leader Amit Shah addressed a public meeting in Khooti in the state of Jharkhand today. Amit Shah campaigned for BJP's candidate Arjun Munda for the upcoming polls. Senior BJP leader and Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also held a meeting in Dumka. BJP National President JP Nadda held a roadshow in Haryana's Panchkula today. The 10 Lok Sabha seats in the state will go to vote on May the 25th. Samajwadi Party National President Akhilesh Yadav and Congress MP Rahul Gandhi held a joint public meeting in support of the INDIA candidates at the GIC ground at Kannauj in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Earlier, both the leaders held a joint rally for the assembly elections. Addressing the rally, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi expressed hope that the Indy alliance will win big in these elections. And DD India's correspondent Amit Mukherjee joins us from Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh. The state is also going to polls on May 13th. Amit, how's the political fight shaping up in Madhya Pradesh and which candidates should we look out for?
Well, Tanvi, I mean, as far as the 8 seats in Madhya Pradesh are concerned, which is in the western part of Madhya Pradesh, they have been traditionally they have been the citadels of BJP. But the only seat that is actually facing some challenge as far as the BJP is concerned is the Ratlam constituency. Because during the last assembly elections, certain issues have cropped up where, where Congress and BJP has been kind of going neck to neck. Now, that is the only reason BJP has now been focusing everything in Ratlam. Otherwise, in fact, if you look at the 2019 elections, BJP had won all the 8 seats which are going to the polls on the 13th of this month. And as the deadline for to end the campaign is approaching, controversies are cropping up because all these candidates are reaching out to woo the voters whole hog. In fact, and they are not even bothered about what the outcome of the statements and the commitments and the various commitments they are making to the electorate. Because in Ratlam a major a controversy has cropped up again because Kantilal Bhuria, who is the Congress senior Congress leader, he raked up controversy by saying that if Congress is voted back to power, people having 2 wives will get 2 lakhs benefit. I mean, that is the kind of level of campaigning and reaching out to people that's happening at the last and the final phase of the campaigning out here in Madhya Pradesh.
So clearly battle heating up there. Thank you very much, Amit Mukherjee, joining us from Mandsaur in the central India's Madhya Pradesh. And now we take a look at what else is happening around the world. 3 people died after a passenger bus fell off a bridge into the Moika River in the Russian city of St. Petersburg on Friday. In the incident, 6 more people have been hospitalized and driver of the bus detained. Catalans will vote on Sunday in a regional election that could determine the stability of Spain's socialist-led government. The voting will also gauge the strength of a pro-independence movement that has roiled the country for a decade. And we are winding up this edition of DD India Global with a story of great hope. In a first, in 100 years, the giant blue-grey sei whales were spotted off the coast of Argentina. The whales vanished from the coast due to hunting. In the 1920s and 30s, regular whaling ships along the shores of Argentina and beyond saw populations of these species dwindle. But in the last 50 years, global bans on commercial whaling have helped these populations of sei and others revive. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on our different social media handles and on our DD India mobile app. So we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.